The Heat were in Philadelphia in a game with huge implications for the Eastern Conference standings, and it was an ugly physical game, neither team reaching 100 points, and the Sixers took control in a terrible third quarter that is all too familiar for Heat fans. But while Miami mounted a furious comeback in the fourth and had momentum going their way, they unfortunately couldn't close the deal and lose a tough one to the Sixers. What went wrong? And can Miami still salvage the last 14 games of the regular season? We'll break it all down in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allheat.com, and joining me as always is longtime NBA reporter David Ramil. However you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Recording this on Monday night after the Heat's loss to the 76ers. They lose this one 98-91 in a game that could end up costing them when it comes to the standings and perhaps a spot in the play-in tournament. But before we get to all of that and some of our listener questions, let's talk about this game. The Heat came back from 17 down to tie it in the fourth quarter, but they couldn't get it done in the end. But our old friend Kyle Lowry had a big fourth quarter. The Heat couldn't make the most of their chances to steal one in Philly on the second night of a back-to-back without Jimmy Butler, no Tyler Hero, no Kevin Love. They also lost Duncan Robinson after three quarters. Other than all that stuff, David, what went wrong?
They were kind of flirting with disaster in the first half too. Like, despite Miami holding on to a slim lead, or at least within striking distance of the Sixers, Tyrese Maxey was torching them, and he was really being able to get what they want. Duncan Robinson wasn't playing particularly well to begin with. They didn't really have much going in terms of flow or consistency in offense. It was really just Bam and Adebayo, and aside from that, they weren't getting much production from anybody else. And then in the third quarter, when things kind of blew up in their face, they get into a 17-point deficit. At that point in time, your work is cut out for you, right? And all the wrong ways. And Miami had to try to find a way to claw their way back and try to generate some scoring in a night when it was so difficult. Again, 91 total points. That's not a great look for this team, but they did it. So if there's a positive to this team, to this game, it's the fact that Miami did show some tenacity without Jimmy Butler, without Tyler Hero, with a number of players out due to injury. So maybe that's a positive, but it just doesn't feel that way because of the overall impact of the standings and everything else like that. As far as what went wrong, allowing yourself to get beat by 17 points by a Sixers team without Tobias Harris, without Joel Embiid, missing a couple other players, like that it should never have happened at that point in time. You should never have to come back. I know everybody's kind of basking in the glory of Bam's game-winning three just a day earlier, but as I said in that recap, it should never have gotten to that point against the woeful Wizards. I know a lot of the justification is, well, beggars can't be choosers. We said as much in the podcast as well, but this kind of shows the team trying to do too much and not accomplishing anything, because they shouldn't have gotten to this point in the first place. If they had just hung on a little bit more closely in the third quarter as things were getting away from them, perhaps they could have completed the comeback and pulled away a victory.
I'm thinking, like, when was the last time this Heat team beat a good team?
They haven't all season.
Well, I mean, even just a good team. I'm not even talking about like an elite team, just like a good one. Not Detroit, not Utah. Miami's last three wins have come against the Pistons.
Yes.
That's crazy, man. Like, take those three wins out of it. Take the 3 games against the second worst team in the league out of it. And you've lost to the worst team in the league in the Wizards during that stretch, and some good teams, and then Philadelphia tonight, who's without Joel Embiid and, whatever. But, like, the last real good, like, team that the Heat beat was Sacramento in Sacramento on February 26th. That's last month, man.
Wow.
Like, it's too long ago, and there was a nice stretch where you beat the Kings and you beat the Pelicans coming out of the All-Star break, and then before you beat Philly in Philly, you beat Milwaukee in Milwaukee. Like, that was a nice little stretch there, but that stretch feels like now an eternity ago, because the Heat are not beating good teams. And like I said, there was a lot going against Miami tonight, right? They were without their best player and Jimmy Butler for the second straight night. They were on the second night of a back-to-back on the road. Like, it's a tough circumstance regardless. But to your point too, I don't know it was so tough that you had to go down by as many as 17 points, but they did climb back into this game. It was a 2-point game at the beginning of the third quarter, and this is where, like, to me, the turning point was. So they scored just 2 points in the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. The score went from them being down 53 to 51 to being down 68 to 51 by the midpoint mark of that third quarter. And during that stretch, Bam had 2 really bad pass turnovers. Were just like late, like it was like a quarterback who read the play late, and the safety was just sitting in the middle of the zone waiting for him to throw the slot pattern out, and just was laying there ready for the pick. He threw 2 of those. Terry Rozier missed 3 shots. Haywood Highsmith got called for a goaltend and missed a corner 3-pointer. There was just a bunch of bad plays during that stretch, and when the Heat, like, they can't afford those 5-minute stretches of essentially going scoreless, even against an okay team like the 76ers, because once the Heat are in rhythm, it feels like the offense can get into a groove. But when the brakes stall out, when their engine stalls out, it just takes them forever to get it going again. And by the time they did get it going again, it was too late because they end up losing the game.
Yeah, and look, and they had their opportunities too. A lot of people will point to dead legs at the end of the fourth quarter. They had a number of shots that might have fallen, but didn't. Jaime Jaquez, Caleb Martin, Patty Mills, etc. It seemed like everybody had an opportunity. Terry Rozier, who had been responsible for much of what happened during that comeback effort in the fourth quarter, and they all had shot opportunities to either put Miami to either tie them or put them up ahead at one point, maybe even close that gap a little bit after the Sixers had pulled away due to Lowry's heroics, which you referenced earlier, and they just couldn't seem to get it done. Like, it was very weird. There was a lot of momentum shifts. It was a lot of just kind of flat moments from this Heat team. I think they were expecting some officiating to kind of bail them out at times. I know that's something we'll talk about a little bit later in the show as well. They weren't getting the calls that they might have expected or might normally get. And so I think they were relying on those to bail them out in some cases. Like, there were opportunities there where they were getting to the rim and then just missing what could have been a wide open shots. Like, Jaime did it a couple times, Caleb did it a couple times, and while there was contact or not, like, your first priority is to hit the shot. If you get the and one as a result, that's fine. But I look to the Sixers defense. Like, Jaime in particular struggled tonight. I mean, he was eaten alive by Kelly Oubre Jr. Like, Oubre there's a reason why Miami wanted to add him to this roster had they been able to acquire Dame Lillard as a complementary role player. I don't know where his minutes would have been there, but it didn't really matter. I guess if you had traded Caleb in the acquisition of Lillard, I guess there would have been an opportunity for Oubre. The point being, he was really good tonight, and he had 4 blocks on the night. They had 12 total blocks as a team. That's ridiculous. That's you getting to the rim, not having a clear understanding of what you're doing when you get there.
Tired legs, to your point earlier. I mean, that's
maybe
part of it.
Maybe. But there were some shots, that were eminently makeable or that we've seen them make before. Like, Rozier had some crazy shots. Bam had a crazy shot that was, like, extremely high off the glass. So they were getting some good looks at the rim, but at the same time, I think there were a lot of efforts there, numerous possessions where they were getting to the rim, kind of putting a half-ass shot up somewhere in the vicinity of the rim, and then just watching as it got swatted away from them to ignite a fast break opportunity for the Sixers, and to which Miami's defense had no response.
Yeah, look, I thought Philly's defense was pretty good in this one. They were able to make the most out of the Mo Bamba minutes. Like, those have been negatives for Philly since Embiid has been out. The Paul Reed minutes have been positive for them, but in this game, like, the Paul Reed minutes were positive for them. I mean, they were net neutral, which was a positive when you're winning the game. And, well, I guess the Mo Bamba minutes were a -1, but they felt more positive than that. Maybe that's some garbage time stuff. I'm not sure, but look, I don't think anybody played all that well for the Heat. And then for Philly, you got a great game from Tyrese Maxey, big minutes from Kyle Lowry. You mentioned the Kelly Oubre stuff. Like, they had guys who played well, and the Heat didn't. And it kind of feels like almost a miracle that they only lost this game by 7 points and that they actually were in striking distance late in this one in the first place. We mentioned Terry Rozier and Kyle Lowry. We got our first glimpse of them going head-to-head. We revisit the Kyle Lowry-Terry Rozier trade after this here on Locked On Heat. Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what you're going to get with Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new, on-trend favorites that will work for you. Just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. Order boxes when you want and how you want. No subscription required, and they send 5 just for you pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. You keep what works, you send back the rest. This is basically like being an NBA player who have their own stylists. Just put out what they're supposed to wear to these games. You saw Joel Embiid wearing like an all camouflaged workwear thing. Maybe Stitch Fix will give you something like that. If that's your style, I don't know. It's not necessarily what I would recommend, but I don't work for Stitch Fix. Stitch Fix makes it all so easy. If you don't like the shop, they save you the time and the effort, and you still get the outfits that make you look and feel good. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the best Major League Baseball season preview, coming exclusively to Locked On Sports Today on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Be the first to get local insight from the MLB local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on, I'm going to say it again, March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. If you're not subscribed yet to that channel on YouTube, do that now. Or you can find it on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. So we saw Terry Rozier and Kyle Lowry go head-to-head for the first time since the Heat traded Lowry for Rozier. Lowry, of course, got bought out then by the Hornets after the deal. He signed with his hometown 76ers. Terry Rozier, overall, a pretty good night, 20 points on 8 for 21 shooting. So not the most efficient night, but it just felt like really big buckets, especially in the second half. Big part of that run, third quarter, fourth quarter, that got the Heat back into this game. And then for Kyle Lowry, he had 16 points, which when was the last time we saw Kyle Lowry score more than 10 points? He took 12 shots, which when was the last time we saw Kyle Lowry take more than 10 shots? A very good game for Kyle Lowry. Some big plays from Lowry in that fourth quarter to exact some revenge on the team that traded him. What did you make of the Rozier versus Lowry battle?
I think overall Rozier, quote unquote, won that battle, but Lowry won the game. I think that matters, right? Like,
Right. That's
whereas
the only
Terry
stat
kind
Lowry
of
cares about is how many times have we heard that?
Yeah, but I think it kind of showed tonight. Right? Maybe it's just spitefulness too. Like, and I've referenced this I don't know how many times over the course of our podcasting career. Players at this level, especially in late March when they're going through the doldrums of the NBA season, they're always looking for something to inspire them. They always look for slights, perceived or real, to fuel them. And if you think that Lowry wasn't circling this game knowing he was going to be facing his former team, you're completely misguided on what drives an NBA player. They're all spiteful in their own ways. They might say otherwise. They might play the humility card with media and with fans and everything else because that's what earns them the endorsement bucks. Hello, Steph Curry. But at the same time, they're all killers. They're all aggressive. You don't get to be one of 450 players, the best 450 players on the planet, without being that kind of a person. And so we knew going into this that Lowry was going to have a solid game. This was better than expected, too. I'll be honest with you. I did not think he was going to be this aggressive and looking for his shot. And, this is the version of Lowry that Miami probably would have gotten as they're going through these games now, as they would have gotten to the playoffs. This is a guy who's been there before, and he's not scared of these opportunities. I don't know how productive he would have been. I don't know how consistent he would have been, which is part of the problem. You're getting more overall consistency from Terry Rozier, but that doesn't deny the fact that Lowry is capable of having these solid, good games that help their team win. And in this case, unfortunately, it was the Sixers who came away victorious, whereas it used to be Miami that could count on Lowry having big moments. And those were there. Like, we can all kind of collectively forget those moments because we hate his contract and we hate his personality and he's bloated and fat and all these other things that Heat fans have used ad nauseum over the last 2.5 seasons of Lowry's stint in Miami. But the reality was that he did come up big in those moments, and he had several games like that helped Miami win games over the course of that 2.5 years. So unfortunately now he's doing it for Philadelphia. Overall, I think Terry was aggressive. Well, we've come to get used to him being a guy who takes a lot of shots. Some of those shots late in the fourth quarter when they were looking to either tie or pull ahead, or maybe even get close to Philadelphia, just weren't falling for him. And maybe that was a result of fatigue and everything else like that. But he was also a good rebounder, active rebounder, not much of a playmaker, which is a concerning thing for Terry Rozier. Because if we talked about this in context of Bam's game winner on Sunday, is that Rozier had the ball in his hands and he passed it up when he saw Bam trailing behind him. Terry wasn't looking to pass to anybody today. He had one assist of the night and basically was like, all right, we're not going to get much offense. I'm going to take over the game. And you never want to be in a position where Terry Rozier has to be the guy to save you or pull you out of the doldrums. And he helped, but he got a little too confident and a little too aggressive. There were opportunities there in the fourth quarter where he probably could have looked to make a play for somebody else rather than taking a shot.
All right, so you just said a lot of things that I kind of want to carve into here. I'll start.
Okay.
I'll start with the Rozier. I do want to ask you whether or not if you think now that the Lowry Rozier trade was a mistake. Don't answer it. That's a tease. But based on what you said, we'll talk about it. Terry Rozier's playmaking. I thought it was interesting that he had one assist. I actually disagree with you. I thought that he was actually really involved and active as trying to get other guys involved. It's just the other guys weren't making their shots, and that's why he only had the one assist. The entire offense in the fourth quarter felt like just Terry Rozier, Bam Adebayo, or Terry Rozier and Thomas Bryant, depending on who was in the game, just pick and roll. Like the entire offense, like the Heat are not a high pick and roll team like the Atlanta Hawks are, for instance.
Right.
They looked like the Atlanta Hawks in the fourth quarter, for better or for worse. They looked like the Atlanta Hawks in the fourth quarter because it was their only offense, especially with Duncan out. So you didn't have that off-ball movement and the triggers that he gets with the split screens and all that kind of stuff. So they basically just devolved into Terry Rozier, Thomas Bryant, Terry Rozier, Bam Adebayo, high screen and roll, Caleb, Jaime, DeLon, or whoever, Patty Mills, or whoever was in the game with them, spreading the floor, at least trying to. And that was the whole offense. So I thought Rozier did as good as he could trying to get guys involved. Did he miss some passes to Bryant? Did he miss some passes to Bam? Yeah, he did. But I didn't have a problem with his playmaking. The 20 points on 21 shots, you'd like him to be more efficient, especially the ones at the rim. I don't know how many times we got to talk about this, but the shots at the rim, where it's 2 or 3 a game, it feels like that should go in, that don't go in, and it just feels like he would be much more of an efficient player if he just fixed that thing. So that's my Terry Rozier point. The Kyle Lowry point, I don't doubt, I don't think any reasonable person doubts that Kyle Lowry is capable of having a game like this sometimes. Kyle Lowry's problem is that he wasn't doing it enough, right?
Yes.
I mean, you even going into this game for Philly. Here's what he has done over the last handful of games. 5 points in the game before this for the Sixers, 12 points, 2 points, 8 points, 6 points, 14 points, 8 points, 15 points, 3 points, 3 points. I mean, that's kind of the same Kyle Lowry that the Heat were dealing with. It's like, we don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be the dozen points and like 4 to 5 assists, or is it going to be just a 3-point on 3-shot dud for Kyle Lowry? And so, fortunately for the Sixers, they still have Tyrese Maxey and Kelly Oubre and these other guys that could bail out their offense. I think, and we'll get to the sort of relitigation of the trade, I think that the trade was a home run for Miami. I think Terry Rozier has been an awesome fit with the Heat, and I think he's still trying to find his footing, but I like what I've seen. I like the fact that he's a threat to score, and I think without him tonight, this is a 20-point blowout instead of a 7-point loss. And I think they won the trade, and I think if it only cost you Lowry's expiring contract and a first-round pick, then it's a slam dunk. Where are you on it now?
I am right there with you. I still think Terry is the right player, just because you need more. Like we've seen Bam struggle to be aggressive with a shot. We've seen Jimmy struggle to be aggressive with a shot. We haven't seen Tyler in action for so long that the designated bucket getter hasn't been out there to get buckets. And so you need somebody who can be that threat, who will attack the paint, who will attack the rim for better, for worse, to your point, who might have that shot falling. I think he did mostly today. At the same time, I think the playmaking has been better. I would say even the defense has been better. You know, maybe he's not going to get that kind of take charge possession the way that Lowry did. Like even tonight, he had a call go against him that might have gone his way, you know, in a Heat uniform. Like we've seen him do that a number of times where he's taken a charge. Tonight it was against Caleb Martin. Nick Nurse, the Sixers head coach, challenged the call, and it was deemed unsuccessful. It was in fact a blocking call. But at the same time, I think
Lowry had a great defensive possession against Jaime Jaquez in the fourth quarter, where Jaquez, I mean, he read it because he was basically roommates with Jaquez on the road, essentially. But Jaquez tried to get the post position, and then Lowry fronted him and pushed him out away from the block, So now
Yeah.
he's like 2-3 feet further out than he wanted to be, and then contested the shot. It was an awesome, awesome play by Lowry, and then he scored on the other
Yeah.
end. And that was one of those swing plays in the fourth quarter that could have been like a one-possession game for Miami, or I think Jaime was shooting for the lead, and then ended up turning into a two-possession deficit for the Heat. So it was like those little swing plays. But I'm with you. We agree on the Rozier thing. Not going to go so far as to say I'm happy for Kyle Lowry, but
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one to
we
say.
would never say that on a Locked On Heat podcast. But
No, I mean, look, my opinion of Lowry is probably more positive than 95% of Heat fans, maybe even higher than that.
but you're very player friendly, and I don't even
I
mean
do.
that in like you are. You tend to empathize with the players more than fans, I think, or the front office or anything. You usually take the player's side on things.
That's fair. That's fair. And I thought, again, the idea of him rising up in these moments, it was fun over the last 2 years.
Mhm.
I expected that to be the case this year had they not pulled off the trade for Rozier. So I would have been just as optimistic about Lowry's opportunities in the playoffs had he remained in Miami. But now that he's in Philadelphia, well, I don't know. It's much more difficult because they're annoying. Right? I mean, you saw him diving over the scores table at one point, and Eric
Or
Reed
baiting Duncan
talked.
Robinson into that foul call with his ass, like just like the way he did all the time with Miami. It's funny when it starts going up when it goes against you.
It's
You're like, oh my
annoying.
god, no wonder every fan base hated this guy. He's really annoying to play against.
I remember in
it's the
2014. I'm sorry to cut you
No,
off.
no,
I
go
remember
for
in
it.
2014 seeing the first game, the exhibition game between Miami and the Cleveland Cavaliers in Brazil and Rio de Janeiro. You remember that exhibition game, the first matchup of LeBron back in Cleveland, and seeing him just throw his head back after every drive to the room, and I'm like, oh god, now I don't have to root for those
Wow, are
calls
you the first
all the
person to
time.
compare LeBron to Kyle Lowry or Kyle Lowry to LeBron? I mean,
No, I'm
it's
just saying,
similar.
like,
It's similar,
a player goes away
No,
from
I
the
get what you
team
mean.
that you cover, and it's like you all of a sudden those things that you saw all the time, and you kind of just sort of like, yeah, of course, it's perfectly normal. Like if Kevin Love wasn't with Miami, and every time he took a charge against Jimmy Butler or something like that, you'd be like, oh, screw Kevin Love, ban the charge, just like 95% of NBA media, But at
Everybody
the same
wanted the
time,
charge banned over the last 2 years, other than Heat fans, because it was their only form
right,
of rim protection was just throwing their body into the
right.
middle of the play, a complete non-basketball play. But hey, Heat culture, baby, nastiest, grittiest, knee pads, etc. Should we be concerned about the Heat's decline in free throw shooting? That's next.
Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role, and that's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. You post a job, right, and whatever source you find. I don't even think people use the classifieds anymore, but whatever you're posting a job on job boards or anything like that, and all of a sudden your email gets flooded. You get all these all these resumes and people reaching out to you and saying they want to follow up. All of a sudden, what turned into be a really busy day is an extremely busy day because you've got to add all this to your plate. I've been there. I know how difficult it is. Well, guess what? With LinkedIn, you don't have to worry about that. They're not just another job board. They've got a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals. It makes it the best place to hire someone. It gives you access to professionals that you won't find anywhere else. And LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is so easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Imagine that. Finding the right person for your job opening in less than a day. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, it might not have the time or resources to hire somebody, but LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. And that's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You could be next. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. Thanks to everybody who sent in questions for the post-game show on Twitter using that hashtag AskLOHeat. You can send questions in and reach us via email, lockedonheat@gmail.com, lockedonheat on Instagram as well. This question comes from Coach, who writes in, where the heck was Bam in the second half? Bam Adebayo, 0 points in the fourth quarter, David. The Heat are trailing 88-85, cutting into that 17-point deficit. With 5:39 left in the fourth quarter is when Bam checks in. Bam does not take a shot, nor does he score a point for the rest of the game. He did have 20 points on 8 for 10 shooting, most of that coming in the first half. I thought it was an awesome first half for him, but what happened to him in the second half? I think it's a fair question.
I think they denied him the ball really well. Like I think they anticipated the pass is going to Bam, and their defense tweaked to such a degree where they were denying the ball, making it more difficult for him to get those kind of looks. We should point out, I mean, again, lost and everything else like that. 2 of 2 from 3-point range for Bam Adebayo tonight. So
I wanted to get to that.
we posited in our earlier podcast this morning or Monday morning regarding whether or not the 3-point shot was here to stay. Certainly looks to be the case, right? That was impressive. One from the corner, one from the top of the break there. Like he was, that looks good. That's a legitimate weapon to add to your arsenal.
Let's just talk about the 3-point shooting, because I think you nailed it. I think the answer is simple, and I don't know. Sometimes there's not that much more analysis other than the Heat didn't have a whole lot of threats on the floor. Bam was a threat. Philadelphia doubled him early in the game, and then when he would get the ball, and then in the second half they started denying him post entry. They started denying him all those things, and when he did touch the ball, they pushed him out. They made him catch far away from the basket. And then they also doubled him if he did manage to catch it far away from the basket. So that was the game plan. Great job by Nick Nurse, who we all know is a good coach.
Yes.
So in terms of the 3-point shooting, he makes 2 3-pointers in the flow of the offense for the first time in his – 2 3-pointers, period, for the first time in his career in a game. And then both of them coming into the flow of the offense. Probably should have been 3 of them, at least three of the attempts, because he got the one later in the game too. And you could tell he's still not quite comfortable with it, because he ends up passing out of it and then throws it to Caleb Martin to his left, and then Caleb Martin has to take a contested 3-pointer. And I was like, go shoot it, man. Let that one fly later in the game. But look, he took 2 of them, so I don't mean to be spoiled. He did get one from the corner. Congrats to Bam Adebayo for your first corner 3-pointer, and then he got one from his patented spot now above the break. It's here, man. 4 straight games with the 3-pointer. I love that he's doing it. I love that he took 2 of them. He's going to watch the film, and he's like, I should have taken 3 of them. So that's where we are with Bam. This is a really interesting question. This one comes from Big Baby, who writes in, with the Heat struggling so bad against good teams, do you think that they can win a first-round matchup against anybody? I'm starting to lose a little faith this season. Starting to. I mean, this is a team that is, 3-18 against teams with a top 10 point differential, and that does not include tonight's game against Philadelphia, who are 11th in point differential. So almost there. But I don't know what that looks like if you extend it to 11 games. Look, this Philadelphia game, second night of a back-to-back, no Jimmy, no Tyler, no Kevin Love. Duncan Robinson lost midway through this. So I don't know that this loss necessarily stands out to me as some sort of bat signal of badness for the Heat. But the overall trend of, hey, this team just doesn't beat good teams, like we talked about in the first segment, is troubling. Does that make you lose faith in what this team could do? And because, newsflash, the good teams are in the playoffs.
Yeah, is this a legitimate question, or did you just make this one up on the spot?
Because, we were just having. I swear, I am not Big Baby.
I would have thought you would have come up with a different name.
It wouldn't have been an old Celtic.
Yeah, because we just had this conversation too, and it's very difficult to separate this Heat team from what they've accomplished, not just last year, but over the past 4 seasons of Jimmy Butler's career in Miami. And so my expectation is, if the question is, can they beat anybody? Absolutely. And I don't know what that looks like. I still think this team is very difficult to put an accurate gauge on. Yes, they haven't been able to beat good teams, like you pointed out the record, and I think that's an accurate reflection of what this team is capable of, or what this team is. What they're capable of is something greater than that, because when you have all these players healthy, and when they turn it on in certain moments, they look like the best team in the NBA. They look better than the Nuggets. There are moments when everybody is clicking and everything looks great, and this team is so dynamic and everything's flowing. But we just see those so irregularly, and with injuries constantly taking somebody out of the rotation. It's, I think anyway, really difficult to get a good gauge for what this team is. But my belief, and that doesn't mean anything, because whatever statistics that you want to use, or analytics, or whatever term you want to use for something,
it's just win losses. This is just
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. Numbers. Yeah, the numbers don't show it. But my belief is that this team can flip a switch and has shown that capacity, and therefore I think they can beat anybody in the Eastern Conference, despite how good Boston looks, despite how good Milwaukee looks on occasion, and et cetera. I think I think this team is capable of a deeper playoff run. It might not happen.
You mentioned the hard to gauge, and I think that's such a great point. This team has had 32 different starting lineups this year.
I think it's more. I think it's up to 34, isn't it? I thought that's what they mentioned in the broadcast, but maybe I'm wrong.
I just looked at the basketball reference tracker. They have it at 32.
There you go.
Either way, it's between 32 and 34. Both of those numbers are very
That's a
high.
hell of a
way
lot,
too
yeah.
high. They just cracked for the first time a week ago 100 minutes for one lineup. And just for reference, like the Denver Nuggets starting five has logged 900 minutes together. There are lineups across the NBA that have played together for 100 minutes since the All-Star break, let alone the entire season. And the Heat have one of them. And by the way, that lineup is a minus net rating. So it's not even their good. It's not even their best lineup. It's just the lineup that happened to be the healthiest for the longest amount of time. I don't even know what the preferred starting lineup is for this team. Do you? I don't think anybody does.
No.
It's been a question we've had all year, which is insane to think about for a playoff team. Oh, we don't even know what their starting five is, let alone their closing five. And so I don't really know what to make of this team. And so last year they make that run from the 8th seed to the finals because they catch lightning in a bottle with three-point shooting, right? They were one of the bottom 5 teams in three-point shooting in the regular season, and then everybody just caught fire in the playoffs, and then boom, they streak into the NBA finals. And that's what happened. That's not going to happen this year because the Heat are a good three-point shooting team by percentage this year. So there's not going to be some sort of crazy reversion to the mean in the postseason. But maybe there's lightning in a bottle in terms of health, where all of a sudden we have not seen this team healthy for a prolonged stretch all season, and then all of a sudden maybe this team just sort of coalesces into something resembling healthy in the playoffs, and you're like, oh, this is the Heat team that we literally have not seen for the past 82 games, right? And so that might be the only reason why all of a sudden this team gets healthy and they look like a team that should be defending the Eastern Conference title, where they just haven't looked like that all year. This is a team with a bad point differential that does not beat good teams. But and I know Eric Spoelstra and all these guys don't want to make excuses, but I'll make your excuses. I'll make them. The next man up thing is cute, but it doesn't help. Like, you don't replace stars. You don't replace Jimmy Butler, who's now ineligible for postseason awards now, or Tyler Hero, who's played less than 40 games all season. Like, I don't care how many Haywood Highsmiths you got on the roster. They're not replacing those guys. So that's where I'm at on this. I still have no idea what to make of this team. But if the health issues keep persisting, then put a nail in this team. Like, it's over. Like, it just is. You know, the rest of the East is too good. I'm not going to disrespect the good teams and saying, yeah, like a bunch of Caleb Martins running around can beat the Boston Celtics, because it's not going to happen. You need your best players on the floor, fresh and healthy, which is why the Heat have been so conservative with bringing these guys.
Let me ask this question really quickly. Fully healthy Heat team versus the Celtics in the opening round. Who do you got?
I have no idea, because I don't know what the fully healthy Heat team looks like. I don't know how they play. I don't even know what their go-to offensive set is. Is it Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo side pick and roll? Is it DHOs with Bam at the top? Is Tyler Hero starting, or is Duncan Robinson starting? Who's the starting power forward in that group? I don't know. I have no idea how to answer that question.
That's Heat and 6, baby. That's how the answer. That's the answer.
Regardless,
whoever it is, you can put Spo at the 4. Who cares? It's the Heat and 6.
Based on how angry he's been lately, he'll throw some fouls. He'll give him
a lot of anger mounting there.
6 hard fouls for Spo on Kristaps.
Okay. Better question: Joe Mazzulla versus Eric Spoelstra. Who you got?
Oh no! Oh, come on. I mean, that's the only reason. Like, the only reason anybody gives the Heat a chance is because
no. I mean, like a battle between them, not a coaching. That's no
like
contest.
A basketball game or a fight?
Either one. Both.
Well, I take Mazzulla in a basketball game. He's way fresher.
Okay, I guess he's younger.
You see him try to block Devin Booker the other day? He got up there.
Yeah. He's Booker? Not too far removed from his playing career. He's younger. But what does he do? Like some training, some mixed martial arts training or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just play the town somewhere off in the corner. He'll get distracted. Spo can get his easy buckets.
If you give Spo a clipboard, I'll take him over anybody. Just as a tip, give him a clipboard.
That's like the weapon of choice.
Wrestling style. I give Joe Mazzulla like a folding chair and give Eric Spoelstra a clipboard. I'll take Spo. You see how
Spoelstra with the clipboard. Oh, smashes it over Mazzulla's head.
He's got the clipboard. Tags in Udonis Haslem and it's over.
Yes. I know. Right. I have to see.
Maybe if the playoffs were done in a ring somewhere, the Heat would have a chance this season.
There you go.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and follow us on your podcast app.